love our chefs and paring knives. We rely on them for most cutting tasks in the kitchen. But we've seen knives that split the difference between these two workhorses. They're mid-sized with more power and coverage than the paring knife and more precision and control than the chef's knife. They're called utility or petty knives. Now these blades are in the 5 to 6 inch range. They're almost exactly halfway between a paring and a chef's knife. Historically, the two knives had very different origins and shapes and advantages, but over the years, distinctions between the utility and petty knives have blurred, and now both words refer to any mid-sized prep knife. We bought 10 utility and petty knives, priced from about $28 to about $210, and we put them through their paces. We sliced tomatoes, we minced shallots and parsley, we quartered mushrooms, we broke down raw whole chickens, and we deboned chicken breasts. We sliced hard salami and firm cheese, and we also sliced cooked skin-on chicken breasts. And we found a lot to like about these knives. They did particularly well at finesse tasks that you do with the tip of the blade, like mincing shallots or quartering mushrooms. Now the blades of most of these knives were very thin and very sharp, so they did a particularly great job at slicing cooked chicken breasts right through the tricky part, which is the crispy skin, and that meant they looked perfect for presentation. And we really loved how they handled raw chicken. These blades are smaller and narrower than chef's knives, so they're even more agile and responsive. That helped us maneuver between joints and trim away slippery skin and fat. The blades are stiffer than what you find on our favorite flexible boning knives, but they also did a really great job of taking the meat off the bone, leaving very little meat behind. Now you don't want to use these things to cut through bone. The steel in these knives is very thin and very hard and a bit brittle, and they did chip when we tried that. Instead, you want to use kitchen shears or a chef's knife when you're going to do any heavier duty butchering, like taking the backbone out of the chicken or cutting a bone-in chicken breast in half. Now, a few factors determined how well these knives handled and performed. First, sharpness. We used an industrial sharpness testing machine to check each blade at the beginning and end of testing. Now, most of these knives arrived razor sharp, but a few were a little bit duller, and they lost some points for that. Now for handling. These knives are built for careful, controlled tasks, so we preferred knives that were very lightweight. That meant they took less effort to use and to control. Some of these knives weighed more than 4 ounces, and that felt a little bit cumbersome. Blade design mattered. We preferred blades that were thin from the top of the spine to the cutting edge. Thinner knives sliced more cleanly, and they took less effort than blades with thicker spines. Those thick blades sometimes wedge into food, and that means they cut less evenly. Shorter knives were better. Blades that were less than 6 inches long gave us a little more control on fine detail tasks like mincing shallots. Now, most of these blades had straight edges, like the traditional petty knife style. But a few others were slightly curved, like a traditional utility knife style. Neither one of those is better than the other. It depends on how you like to cut. If you prefer to rock through your cuts, you want a curved blade. A straight edge is better if you like to cut in a more straight up and down motion. Next, we considered the handles. We really liked handles that were at least 4 1/4 inches long, because that gave space for most people to grip the knives comfortably. We also appreciated handles made of wood or grippy plastic. They were way easier to hold than slick plastic handles, especially when your hands were a little greasy or wet. Clearance is a factor. When we chopped parsley or sliced cheese and salami, those are tasks that you do on a cutting board using the middle or the heel of the blade. There wasn't always a lot of room underneath for our fingers. More space was better, especially for people with larger hands. We actually found it hard to choose one single winner. We think any of our top 5 ranked models would be a great addition to your knife collection. But if we had to pick just one, it would be the Tohiro 150mm Petty R2 powder steel. It has a straight edge blade that's just under 6 inches long. It's thin from spine to edge, and it was the sharpest knife when it arrived and cut foods effortlessly with amazing precision. It felt great in our hands. It's lightweight with a handle long enough for hands of all sizes to grip comfortably. And it had just enough clearance under the handle for us to chop food without banging our knuckles. Our favorite cost about $120, so we also picked a best buy, and that's the Mac PKF 60 Pro Utility 6-inch. It's about $72. Both of our favorites were a pleasure to use.